and welcome. I'm Jade of Jaded Reader, and today I am finally doing my January and February wrap-up. In the month of January, I read 8 books, and in the month of February, I read 6. So I felt like February was a more productive reading month. I guess January technically was. Both wrap-ups will be done in ascending order from my least favorite to my favorite book of each month. My first book in January is actually very different from what I regularly read. I tend to go towards fantasy and like epics, I don't know, fun stuff. This book wasn't fun. It was Butterfly Garden by Dot Hutchinson, and I listened to it on audiobook. I ended up returning this audiobook because I had a really hard time. I barely finished. I wanted to DNF it in parts. So essentially it's about this creepy weird dude who owns an arboretum inside of his mansion, and it is filled with women who he has his son kidnap off the street, and then they live inside of this arboretum. I don't know if that's the word. And then they live in this domed garden where he tattoos them with different butterflies and collects them. I thought it was going to be more like thriller, and I've been trying to read more thrillers. I thought this would be something exciting to share. It was not. It was kind of like a hot mess. Definitely was creepy. Points there for creepiness. But it had a lot of like ageist dialogue and like describing the women, and there was supposed to be like a twist at the end, and I thought it was really lame. I didn't get the point of the twist. It was like, who cares? There is definitely trigger warnings for sexual assaults, rape, pedophilia. It's got a lot to it. Oh, there's also physical abuse. Yeah, it's sick. And I don't mind if a book is twisted and deals with hard subject matter, but this one did it kind of poorly, and I found myself either confused, bored, or horrified. So I ended up giving Butterfly Garden 2 out of 5 stars. It was a mess, and I'm going to stick to actual butterflies from now on. Second up, I have Thomas Wildest and the Book of Sorrows. I received this arc for an honest review. I thought this was a really cute middle grade book. So Thomas is a 12-year-old boy who is so sweet and so pure, and he ends up going into this bookshop where he is sold a book called the Book of Sorrows, and he ends up finding out a lot of magic. There's some things with his family background, there's evil, the doodle battles that would go on with him and his friends were really fun. Some things that made this harder to read, and I did read it a lot slower than a lot of other middle grade books, was the dialogue wasn't quite right in some places to me. Sometimes went a bit slower. I'm not sure on the pacing, but I'm really excited to get a final copy so I can read this over and see if there were any changes made. Regardless, I enjoyed myself, and I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up on my list, I have Trial by Fire by Josephine Angelini. I read Trial by Fire during the Trial by Fire read-along hosted by Sarah at Novel Serendipity. I actually was a co-host in that, and I have Sarah's live show listed below, so you can go check that out for my full thoughts. But essentially, Trial by Fire follows Lily, who lives in our world and has a lot of allergies. Her life is somewhat difficult, and she has a best friend who's a boy who completely sucks. After having a bad night, she ends up going into a parallel universe where she meets herself and ends up pretty much hating herself and running away and joining a group of rogues who are trying to retake the kingdom. This book had a lot of good in it that I really enjoyed. The magic system in this book is phenomenal. It deals with alchemy, it has actual science involved in it, there's some vegan rep in there. The reason why I ended up giving this 3 stars is because while it did have a really great magic system, I found some of the story kind of odd. It didn't quite match up as far as the pacing went. I didn't click with any of the chemistry going on, but I really liked the premise, and I actually do plan on continuing the series. It won't be the next up on my list, but it does have a cliffhanger ending, and I'm really intrigued to see what happens next. So if you go really, really far back, like too far back into my videos, you can find my first ever giveaway and my wrap-up having to do with Peter Pan. I did not much care for Peter Pan. However, there were lots of things I did like about Peter Pan. It was Peter himself I was struggling with. I liked Neverland. I liked everything but Peter Pan himself. It was also really uncomfortable to read. I understand that it's a classic. However, there was a lot of racial material in it and like just sexist stuff that I just couldn't get past. I wasn't able to enjoy myself as much as I wanted to, despite this being a beloved classic. So long story short, I ended up hosting a giveaway, met my beloved LEXI at Alexandra Roseland, who won the giveaway and happens to be obsessed with Peter Pan, and I picked up Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson. Tiger Lily is a feminist retelling of Peter Pan. This took care of a lot of things that I really struggled with in Peter Pan. I know that there's lots of mixed reviews on this book, however, I found that in this book you get the tone and mood of Peter Pan while giving a fresh perspective. There was gender fluid rep, there was a feminist message. Peter was not the main focus, it was Tiger Lily, and it's told in the perspective of Tinkerbell, who I will not spoil for you, but is not treated, in my opinion, very fairly in the story of Peter Pan. There is a lot of lessons that go into this. Tiger Lily definitely has her own story, and I just really enjoyed myself while I was reading it. There is challenge, gender fluid, and transphobia involved, as well as a trigger for suicide. Though it is done off page, it is there along with the grief that goes with it, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, I highly recommend you try out Tiger Lily, especially if you did struggle with Peter Pan in any way, or you just want another perspective and you adore Peter Pan. So I ended up giving Tiger Lily a 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is Descender Volume 2. I absolutely am digging Descender. Descender was recommended to me by Sam at Sarcasm and Sci-Fi. She nailed it. This graphic novel is absolutely wonderful. There's 6 in the series. There is a sequel series that I believe just came out called Ascender. So if you're looking to try out a new graphic novel but don't want to commit to like a never-ending saga, then I highly recommend you try out Descender. It has beautiful watercolor artwork. The character designs are really unique. And while I've talked about this series on my channel before, I just want to kind of go over the summary again because this graphic novel is not talked about as much as I think it should be. This story follows Tim21, who was built as a companion robot along with the cutest robot dog there ever was. But there's a lot of character development, a lot is being unraveled, and I'm just really enjoying it. So I ended up giving Descender 4.5 out of 5 stars. It is near close to perfect and definitely near and dear to my heart already. Sorry, I'm following the natural light, so I just shuffled over. You can see more of my books now anyway, it makes more sense. So everyone was incredibly excited when it was announced by Netflix that the Grisha trilogy is getting a series on Netflix, obviously. To give myself a bit of a recap, as well as get ready for King of Scars, which is the story of Nikolai that I had pre-ordered, I went ahead and reread Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. Crooked Kingdom is an amazing part of a very large series. I am calling all of the Grishaverse a series at this point because in reading Crooked Kingdom, post-reading the Grisha trilogy, I appreciated it so much more. While the main plot does not rely on you reading the Grisha trilogy first, I would say that there's a lot of cameos and information as well as world building that is missed out on if you don't start with the Grisha trilogy. There's stuff in this that I missed the first time. There's a lot of Nina and Matthias chapters that have cameos from the Grisha trilogy that I didn't get. I did not understand. I didn't realize what fan candy I was being given, and I really enjoyed it this time around. So long story short, I reread Crooked Kingdom. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I think that's what I gave it last time, but this time I really sincerely mean a solid 4 out of 5 stars. And it prepped me for reading King of Scars. Second to last for January, I have Onyx and Ivory by Mindy Arnett. This cover, come on. And the book inside is also absolutely astonishingly wonderful. I really enjoyed Onyx and Ivory. I was actually surprised with how much I enjoyed Onyx and Ivory. First off, didn't know there were dragons. They're drakes, they don't have wings, they're still really cool. They have a good, like, design to them. I liked the romance that was in it. It was unconventional while still, I was definitely rooting for the romance in it. I liked the characters, and the plot is really cool. So let me get into the plot really quick. So the plot follows a girl named Kate, known as Traitor Kate, because her father is known for trying to assassinate the king, which is not great. Kate had a best friend who was the prince, and they had a huge falling out when the king was like, yo, why are you trying to kill me? And he ended up killing Kate's dad. So Traitor Kate ended up moving to a different kingdom and works as a messenger. On her travels as a messenger, trying to get information from one kingdom to another, there are drakes, so she has to be in before it gets dark. Leading up to like the main plot, I was already in it. If this had been the Try a Chapter challenge, I would have stopped at this book and kept reading because the entire time it was really well paced. There's a mystery involved, there's conspiracies, there's a twist. All of it is really good and really well written. I enjoyed myself from beginning to end while while reading this book. So I gave Onyx and Ivory 5 out of 5 stars. I feel like this book was kind of slept on. It was like hot for a second and then boom, nobody ever spoke about it ever again. I'm speaking about it now. It's really, really good. Go pick it up. Let me know if you hate it and I'll apologize. Finally, I have my favorite book I read in January, which was not a 5-star read, and that was Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden. So Bear and the Nightingale, I didn't think I was going to even like until about halfway through this book. That might turn a lot of people off, but I think it's really important. Just clarify, this does have a very slow start. It's a very beautifully well done book. I'm just letting you know. So I've seen a lot of favorable reviews on this book. It's because people reached the ending. This book is really beautiful. It has like a natural witchcraft to it that I wasn't expecting. It follows a young girl named Vasilisa who is at first just seen as like this whimsical child who is growing up in her household, but as she grows older, people expect more and more out of her and her being a woman, and she definitely defies their expectations. I absolutely adored Vasilisa. I found she was a very kindred spirit. I liked how she was written. I liked the storyline. It's in a very cold Russian climate. I read part of this while I was in Juneau, Alaska, and it was all just so atmospheric. I was in. This I ended up giving 4 out of 5 stars. It was my favorite read in the month of January. However, I have to admit that the pacing was not perfect. Then we have hit January, and in January I was participating in the catch-up book club for Game of Thrones, which I'm still reading. It's not over yet, so you won't see Game of Thrones in this wrap-up. I also participated in Blackathon. Blackathon is hosted by Jessie at Bowties and Books. I will have all of their information linked below, and I really enjoyed all the prompts. First up for February, I have The Last Name Sarah by Kristen Cicerelli. It was gifted to me by Sarah at Novel Serendipity, and I thank her so much. Guys, this book has dragons. Like legit out of myth and legend dragons. I loved the dragons in this book. I don't know what I would have given this book without all of the dragon folklore and magic, but I gave it a 3-star because there are dragons. So in the story, you have the main character, Asha, who is the Iskari and princess of this kingdom. There was a horrible accident where a dragon burnt half of her body and her entire kingdom. Lots of people died. A prince ended up without a family, and she is now betrothed to marry him based off of a peace offering. She is also a dragon slayer and goes out and slays dragons as a part of her revenge and peace offering because the dragon's burning was somehow her fault. I found this entire storyline really compelling. It was just the dialogue. The dialogue and the small inconsistencies in characters really just, it knocked it down 2 stars. One moment Asha was saying and representing one thing, and the next she was kind of contradicting what she previously had said. While I didn't find that the characters and the plot were strong, I really loved the stories that were in this story. I won't get too much into it because it can get a little spoilery, but essentially to summon dragons, you can have stories, and there has been a correlation between telling these stories and people dying. So Last Name Sarah ended up getting 3 out of 5 stars, but I really did enjoy myself as I read it. Within Blackathon, there was the prompt Wakanda Forever, which was to read a graphic novel with a black main character, and for that, how could I not? It's Wakanda Forever. I went with Black Panther by Ta-Nehisi Coates. Okay, so I kind of already had background on Black Panther. This was not my first introduction to his origin story. Along with reading other comics of his, I have also loved and enjoyed everything Marvel has done cinematically with Black Panther, so I can say that definitely helped me through this comic. It kind of just throws you in. You're in the middle of what's happening in Wakanda, and there were some confusing parts that were unexplained. The storyline was meh. However, the women in this killed it. Like, good killed it. It was awesome. They're phenomenal. This also fulfills the prompt of More Than a Color, which is to have an intersectional black character. This had an amazing female-female romance. I found myself flipping through really quickly all of T'Challa's parts to get to the Midnight Angels storyline that is in this book. So with 3 pros and pretty substantial cons, I ended up giving Black Panther a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I still very much so plan on continuing. It left off at a really good point, and I'm not missing out. For the prompt Feel the Love, I have Pride by E.B. Zavoy. This is a Pride and Prejudice remix, and while I don't have like substantial memories about Pride and Prejudice, I saw what it was doing, it did it really well, and I read this book in a day. It wasn't part of my original TBR, but I got this edition in my Owl Crate, and as soon as I realized that I had it, I was like, oh my god, duh. And I read it and it was awesome. So while this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling, it definitely had its own storyline. It's cute, it's fun, it's enticing. There's like amazing Dominican and Haitian food descriptions, as well as just Dominican Haitian culture. So Pride is really adorable, but not for the reasons I expected. I expected to really find the romance in this adorable. It wasn't. It was okay. However, it is the family dynamics and the sister relationships in this book that made it absolutely wonderful to read. Really adored all of them. They all had different personalities. I enjoyed it for the family aspect, and I got a side dish of romance. So I ended up giving Pride a 4 out of 5 stars. So then I have The Stars Beneath Our Feet by David Barclay Moore. This fulfills the prompt of hear us to read a book by a Black author, and I have several books that fulfill that prompt, but you know, it was a good introduction to this. The Stars Beneath Our Feet is a middle grade novel, but it's like so much more. Lolly is our main character. He's about 13 years old, and he is really struggling after the death of his older brother, Jermaine. There's definitely trigger warnings for grief, gun violence, the death of a loved one, and there is a mentioned suicide. So keep those in mind when reading this, but if those are things that you can get past, this book is worth reading. He's having a hard time in his neighborhood. He's being pressured by gangs as well as his friends, and so in juxtaposition to a boy playing with Legos and wanting to be an architect, Lolly is also under a lot of pressure to make a lot of adult decisions. This book was phenomenal. I was reading it for class as well as Blackathon, and I was just really impressed with Lolly, his character development, the lessons in it, and the relationships. So I ended up giving The Stars Beneath Our Feet 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, after reading Crooked Kingdom in the month of January, I of course read King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo in February. I read this immediately upon receiving it. I have a vlog that details me reading it. It is spoiler free, and there's a companion vlog that I did with Jess of Tundra Tomes where she is reading it along with me, and we have conversations and we go through the book spoiler free. Unless you haven't read the Grisha trilogy, because this book's very existence is a spoiler for the Grisha trilogy. Do you see what I mean? You have to read the Grisha trilogy. It's not an option anymore. If you want to read Leigh Bardugo, you kind of have to. They intersect. The Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology meet up in this book. This is the story of Nikolai, and because I don't want to spoil anything for the Grisha trilogy or Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom duology, I'm just gonna say it follows Nikolai. Nikolai is absolutely phenomenal. The romance in this has me smitten. I'm shipping some people pretty dang hard. Also my first time annotating. I don't have a solid process yet, but I promise I'll have an annotation video up so that this actually means something as soon as I know what I mean. You know what I mean? I don't know what I mean, so you don't have to. It's fine. I ended up giving King of Scars 5 out of 5 stars. Not my favorite of February, but an amazing book. Look at this thing. It's gorgeous. There's also a stunning special edition copy that I wasn't able to get my hands on, but if you want to see it and gush over it and never have it, just like me, you can watch the Princess of Paperbacks video. She has unboxings, and I'll link her down below because I watched it and I kind of wanted to cry. So my favorite book in the entire month of February, I read in one sitting. I cried most of my sitting. I felt like I was crying every other poem, which gives you a pretty good hint. This also goes into the Heroes category of Blackathon, and it is The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. Wow. I knew this was going to be good. It's highly praised. People talk about it. People, for the most part, love it. I didn't know it was going to give me that reaction. I am going to be rereading this book to annotate it. I flew through it so fast. By the time I was halfway through, I remembered that I annotate books now, and it was too late. I will be rereading this. This is a really raw, deep, impressive book. It's told in verse. It follows Xiomara, or X, the poet X, her journey through her religion, her family, her trying to be a woman in society, and just, I could not stop crying. The way she writes it, if you have any empathy, you're right there with her. And, oh God. It was really fucking good. I kind of want to read it right now, but I guess I should probably finish up, what is this? This wrap up. I gave The Poet X 5 out of 5 stars. Damn, this was good. I feel like it should be in schools. I feel like it should be in discussions. I'm glad that this book is so hyped. I think that that means something too, and I'm really, really happy about it. I have a review up on Goodreads as well. A lot of my books, actually, I have been reviewing on Goodreads, so I will go ahead and leave a link below to my Goodreads page. I've been like using it a lot more lately, and a lot of these books I have an in-depth review on. The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo was my favorite book I read in February. It was actually my favorite book I have read in a long time. I really enjoy it, and I highly recommend it. Then to truly wrap up my Blackathon prompts, one of the prompts is Feel the Beat, and that is to listen to 4 poems that I will have linked down below and choose your favorite and explain why. I ended up choosing Joshua Bennett's Balaenoptera. I hope I'm saying that right. It's like a genus Latin root for blue whale, and you will understand that as soon as you listen to it. It was like a really uplifting love poem that, although it was uplifting, I was like crying because it has so much raw passion. Joshua is speaking to his significant other, who obviously has a strong love for oceanography, and it really shows how much he puts into it. And you just, the fact that he made a love poem having to do with oceanography that passionate really brings tears to your eyes. I highly recommend it. Whether you're into oceanography or love, you should listen to that poem. It's beautifully done, and I thank you, Jessie, for showing it and having people experience it. All the poems in the list I highly recommend. Let me know which one is your favorite, which one spoke to you more, why. Like, I would love to have more conversations about these poems down below. If you have a wrap up of your own you'd like to share, I love finding new booktubers, and I do have a shout out video coming in March, so please share your channels if you have a channel and you haven't heard from me before. I'm not always able to comment on everyone's videos every single time. My school schedule just doesn't really allow for it. However, I love subscribing to new channels, and I am looking forward to the shout out video I'm doing. So if we haven't connected, connect with me down below. And guys, believe it or not, that's it. I don't know how long this video is. I can just apologize to you, to editing me. This me doesn't care, but editing me will. Sorry that I totally just spaced. February is like my least favorite month in the world, and when it came to filming my January wrap up, once I was in February, it was already over. I had already like checked out. As March creeps closer, hurry up. I am looking forward to getting back on track with my videos. I hope you enjoy this one. I hope you are enjoying the sun or more stars wherever you are, and until next time, bye! First off in February. I just did January. Prompt. It's a boy. Why am I adding a V? I'm not Russian. Takes 17. Sorry, oh gosh. My neighbor in the neighboring apartment is looking at me through the window. Stop, please. I have no pride. Like, I mean, I'm like just standing here with a tripod. Go away. Shoo, find something better to do. She's not even old. Get out of here. She's holding her cat. Oh, her cat is really cute. I guess I'll just continue. What was I saying? Something about this book being adorable? It is. It is adorable. You did it. That lady is still watching me. I cannot believe. Like, does she think I'm just like incredibly vain? Does she find me interesting? Does she like my dress? This is a dress, by the way. It's just like slinky, so it looks like a shirt.